Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Town Council meeting of May 16th, 2023. As you can see, we're using our hybrid model. I will start with roll call. Councillor Chapel.
Present.
Councillor McGuire.
Present.
Councillor Meany.
Present.
And I am Councillor Carter, and to the right of me is Town Manager Nate Rudy. Would everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is the minutes, and I'm going to remove it from the consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the May 2nd, 2023 meeting.
So moved. Did you just remove it from the?
I
Yeah,
did.
so moved.
Second.
Okay, and I noticed that the section under my report, committees and correspondence was inadvertently using last year's report and not the 2023 report, so it in its entirety needs to be swapped out. And I have sent that report to Nate so that they can make that change. Did anyone else have any other changes? Krista?
Yep. On packet page 10, which is minutes page 7, under the last two paragraphs, in the section where I was talking, it was referencing $60,000 for the reevaluation contract, and that should be $160,000, where it's referencing that. Packet page 11, which is minutes page 8. Where am I? Under the section under committee reports, where I'm speaking, under bullet 2, ADUs are mentioned several times, but that should actually be short-term rentals, or STRs. And finally, under packet page 12, under my correspondence and activities, the fourth item, John Hedman is spelled incorrectly, so I just need a spelling correction there. It's John, Jon. Hedman is Hedman. That's all I had.
All right, Dan?
I had a couple on packet page 7. At the top of the page, the first line there, I had talked about the weight limits being to prevent road damage, not specifically bridge. And I've already got these, so I'll send to you, Nate.
Okay, thank you.
And on packet page 12, at the top, basically, I just wanted to break out the planning board comments from my comments about the budget statement.
Okay.
And I'll send both of those changes to Nate. Yep.
All right, Marty, did you have any changes?
No.
Okay. Krista?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
I'm also yes. Next item on the agenda is public comments of non-agenda items. Limit is 3 minutes per person. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on non-agenda items? Not seeing any. There's no one in chat or hands up, so I will close the public comments on non-agenda items. Are there any adjustments to the agenda this evening?
I have none.
Okay. Next item is our second read and public hearing to review proposed changes to the Zoning Ordinance Chapter 402 with regards to accessory dwelling units, ADUs. Proposed changes include setting a maximum footprint for ADUs, editing references to comply with state law, updating Table 402.5.3 regarding zoning district uses, adding references regarding exemption from parking requirements, adding reference to home occupation use within an ADU, updating the definition of accessory apartments, and updating the accessory apartments section. Are there any members of the public here to speak on ADU ordinance changes? seeing any. Scott? And please identify your name and address and log in. Thank you.
Scott Liberty, New Gloucester. I just had a question. The last time we were here, I think the consensus sounded like it was around 1,000 square feet. Has that changed?
It's 750 now.
750, okay. So for my 2 cents worth, I recently did a one-bedroom, 800 square foot apartment, and I can tell you it's small. If it doesn't have a basement, it's just a single floor, it doesn't leave a lot of room. You're trying to figure out where you're gonna put closets and, you know, good for the storage business. But I don't think it's, I think it's going to lead to less aesthetics, but not as attractive aesthetics. I think what you're gonna get is lower quality of product. I would encourage the council to go back to at least 980. So, you know, keep it close to 1,000. I built 20 duplexes here in town and years ago, and those were 760 square feet. And I can tell you they're pretty small, and they're not really the quality I would like to build today. But that's what you're gonna get. So,
Okay,
thank you.
And just to speak to that, the reason why we ended up, 750 was a compromise for us. But LD 2003 will be changing other density requirements, loosening up more density options for residents to do duplexes and other things. And so I think we had a consensus that we'd start with the 750 and work through those other changes, and then we can always come back and revisit the square footage. Are there any other comments on ADUs? None in the chambers. Just going to check online. No comments, no hands up, so I will close the public hearing for ADUs, and I'm looking for a motion for the council to approve proposed changes to zoning ordinance chapter 402 with regards to accessory dwelling units.
So moved.
Second.
Any additional comments on this? Dan?
Yeah, I think that we've heard lots of numbers from no bigger than the size of the building on the lot to less than 750 square feet. I think one of the problems is, like the cannabis law, like some of the other laws that are coming out of Augusta, they write the law and then they write the rules afterwards. And the rules are under construction as we speak. In fact, there's 2 bills in the legislature. One would actually eliminate us from the program because we're too small. And there's other changes that are proposed, but none of those are anything that we can count on or take to the bank. We have this July deadline. And so I think what this does is it allows us to carefully get started on ADUs, but unfortunately, because the way the legislature's gone about this, we're gonna get to have this conversation probably several more times like we have done with cannabis. So that's why I feel comfortable with the 750 starting point.
Okay. Any other comments?
I agree with that.
Krista? All right, Krista?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Next item is the first reading and public hearing to review proposed changes to the vehicle use and weight restrictions ordinance, chapter 501. Changes include updating language for the Shaker Road segment, adjusting the maximum weight limit for exempt trucks, increasing the period when seasonal road postings can be in effect, changing the appeals process to go before the town manager, and removing language regarding DOT enforcement. Are there members of the public here to speak on the weight limit? And remember to please sign in and state your name and address.
Adam Wilkinson, 86 Yarmouth Road. I'm here tonight. I have some concerns with this weight limit, the weight limit ordinance here in town as it's written, and some things that have come up. My reason for presenting here tonight is I've made several attempts to be involved with this, and I've actually verbally talked with some of the members on the council. We actually had a meeting here with contractors, the town manager and Doug back here, I don't know, several months ago, and I had expressed my disappointment with the lengths that the town had gone to contact businesses in the Route 26 or the Short Shaker Road section of Route 26. I still to this day have not received any notifications whatsoever of the potential weight limit changes to that road. So I liken it to the pit ordinance review that was done roughly 10 years ago. There was a pretty good, pretty strong turnout speaking against what was going on then, and I was actually invited to take part. I was kind of thinking something along the lines of that would happen this time, but it has not been done. So I'm here tonight to present my thoughts that I would have loved to have given a long time ago. I have a couple questions that I'd love to ask you guys. Can I ask a question at this point to you guys?
Well, you can go ahead and state your comments, and
Yeah.
then we'll go from there.
Well, I've kind of prepared a little thing and I'm gonna go through it. Since 1982, there's only been one road in town that's posted, and that is M.R.S Street between Weymouth Road and Route 26. That street is only posted to no through trucks, no weight limit. Recently, Short Mayall Road has been posted at 10,000 pounds, and now Shaker Road between Gray Village and Route 26 is slated to be posted at 23,000 pounds. I'm not in favor of these postings, these new postings, and here's the data why. I will use my personal data, and it is echoed many times around this room with other operators. I purchased a new truck in 2021. It was a Peterbilt triaxle that would increase our capability and our efficiency to transport product to and from our job sites. The cost of the truck was $170,673. However, before I could put it into service, I had to add $19,606 in federal excise tax, $9,408 main sales tax, $4,566 local excise tax, $762 for registration, and an annual heavy vehicle use tax of $306. My total price of putting that truck on the road was $205,322, and if you work that out, that's 20.3% of what I paid being taxes and fees alone. This is just one of our trucks. I have 5 dump trucks and 3 light trucks that I pay excise tax and registration in this town. We are a small company, so I can only imagine what the larger ones pay in similar taxes and fees. Our trucks average between 3 and 5.5 miles per gallon. With diesel at $5 per gallon, that works out to $91 to $1.67 cost for every mile driven just in fuel. Add the tire wear and general upkeep, and we're talking $225 to $350 per mile driven in operating cost, and that does not factor in paying the driver. This is current fuel pricing when diesel was almost $7 per gallon, costs were even higher than that. For another perspective, let's look at time costs. Let's use $120 per hour as the charge for the use of the dump truck. So that works out to $2 a minute. If we're waiting in traffic, or we have to take a longer route to avoid certain roads, you can see how this will add up quickly over the course of a day or an entire job. For example, 10 minutes per trip of additional driving time or traffic time, 10 trips a day, 100 minutes lost, or $200 lost revenue on the truck, let alone losing a delivery, or 2 potentially, which is a lot more than $200 depending on the material. If you think this isn't a big deal, then you need to imagine hauling from Yarmouth Road, 115, into Gray Corner, and then having to drive down to the bypass through the 3 traffic lights and turn up the bypass during commuter hours, or worse yet, Thursdays or Fridays, when the traffic is backed up to the park and ride. This potential posting will force us to be stuck in that traffic and force us to lose revenue based on wasted time and idling time. This brings me to our next financial challenge. We are a seasonal industry. We cannot be as productive in the winter months as we are in the other seasons. Weather conditions dictate how long our non-productive winter months will be, and then at the tail end of winter, we have posted road season when all the orange signs go up on town roads. Posted road season can last up to May 1st. That is potentially a 5-month span that we are marginally productive or non-productive, and that's just under half the year. We pay all of our expenses, taxes, fees, insurances for 12 months, even though we can't get the full 12 months of productivity. This is another reason why the postings are problematic, because we have to make our days count, minutes count, and miles count. And I just come up with this simple little example. Imagine the everyday person who pays Spectrum for their internet and cable every month. But for 5 months of the year, they only get half the stations, regardless of whether they pay full price. How long would it be before you called them to complain? This is what heavy trucking goes through every year, and it sure costs a lot more than $99.99 per month. We pay a lot of money to the town, state, and federal government to use these roads. That's not to mention the state and local taxes we pay on every gallon of fuel we purchase that is also for road use. When you add those up, it costs a lot to put our trucks on the road, so we need to do so in the shortest and quickest routes that we can. We have paid for the right to utilize these roads, unlike some other types of allowed traffic that do not pay 1 cent to use the road, and electric vehicles that do not pay the state or federal road use taxes from fuel purchase. I feel the precedent that was set on the Mayo Road with the posting of 10,000 pounds is going to be very problematic. Many of us do not even own a truck, pickup or otherwise, that is technically light enough to drive on that road. Most commercial pickups are registered at least 12,000 pounds, including my own. When I've asked for clarification on why short Mayo was posted, it has been relayed to me that the road has taken abuse from truck traffic over the years.
Excuse me a minute. Will you pay attention to him rather than looking at your papers?
This is his
He's
written,
speaking, and all you guys are doing is looking at something.
this is his
While
written,
he's speaking, I pay attention
excuse
to
me,
what
sir,
he's
you are
saying.
out of order. Excuse me. This is his written statement that he provided to us so that we could follow along with his comments. You are, sir, please, this is an official meeting. You are out of order. You need to be recognized to speak. Thank you for your comment. Adam, please continue.
Okay, thanks. If this has occurred, it is because the road was not built to suitable standard to begin with. The best built portion of the road of Short Mayall Road is where Short Mayall intersects Route 115. This is a far superior intersection than the Depot Road intersection for truck traffic because it meets the general guideline that the angle of intersection should be as close to 90 degrees as possible. I believe the standard to shoot for intersecting roads is 90 degrees and can be no less than 75 degrees or 105 degrees, so 15-degree derivation either way of 90. I took a minute this morning, I actually went over to Depot Road, and I took a compass. I stood right on the white line at Depot Road, and I shot Depot Road with my compass, and it was 47 degrees north. And then I turned to the Yarmouth Road 115, and I shot the white line. It was 103 degrees east. The Depot, now like I said, this is not surveying accuracy equipment, but I'm pretty good with angles. That's a 56-degree angle that Depot Road currently meets 115. That by far is below what this town and most towns ask of driveways or new road construction. I just found that interesting that we are now funneling all of the traffic, heavy truck traffic now out Depot Road, and especially the trucks that have to turn towards Yarmouth, have to make a very sharp turn, and these trucks are not necessarily built to turn sharply. And it is definitely disturbing the traffic flow over on that side of town. I find this very troubling because if we start posting roads based on suitable construction that would handle heavy traffic loads, there would be very few roads in the town that would even pass. I can speak on the suitability of road construction from my experience of digging under, adjacent to, or across some of our roads. One of the few roads that legitimately was built to sustain the type of heavy traffic standard is the old Route 26, Short Shaker Road. And now that's the road that is slated to be posted. I feel that if a road is constructed to such a substandard that it has to be posted at 10,000 pounds, then maybe the town should be held to the same standard that is expected of new construction for development and rebuild it. That is what our commercial taxes and fees are for from the federal, state, local, and every gallon of fuel we buy. My fear is that with current precedents, that there will be an increasing and unreasonable number of roads that will be petitioned for the town to post. These are also the same roads that will help some of the heavy traffic out of the village and help us work more efficiently. If that happens, you need to consider the effects on your next project, or maybe your kids' projects, when you're on the other end of one of our deliveries. If you're paying by the mile or by the minute, do you want us to take a longer, more time-consuming route, or do you want us to take the most efficient route that will pass the best value on to your project? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you.
Are there other people who would like to speak to the weight limit restriction? Public hearing.
Yeah, Scott Dugas, Yarmouth, Maine. I'll second Adam's, what he's talking about. I understand the town posts roads in the spring, and I get that, because if the road's got a bad base, they can't afford to have us wrecking the road. So I understand that, and I'll go along with that. But posting that piece of Mayall Road is ridiculous. If you go up and look at 115, where the trucks come out of Depot Road and turn towards Yarmouth, you'll see there's black tire marks all over the road there. It's a really hard turn. It's hard to get into traffic. The cars are coming from Gray to take a left onto Depot Road. Half of them don't use their directional, so you don't know they're gonna turn. Then when they do use it, you don't know if they're gonna wait and let you go or not. It's really dangerous there. And those roads are all setting on gravel pits anyway, so they got a good base. And the same actually with the road he's talking about where his shop is. So it's not like they're roads that are out on a clay pit. But that's a bad situation. And, you know, all these, I've been in business 45 years, and it used to be everybody was trying to design things to have a better flow of traffic, more efficient. And it seems like everybody's working now to slow everything down, many stop signs as you can, which we all talk about this carbon footprint and stuff. Well, trucks starting and stopping and making hard turns, it's burning all this extra fuel and dumping rubber all over the road. It seems to me like we're going backwards instead of ahead. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
you.
And did you sign in, please?
I do
Thank
know
you.
how to write.
Okay, thank you. And are you standing up to speak, or, okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak on the weight limit? Sir? You can go up. Yeah. You have to go up to the podium, or no one can hear you from home.
I'm Scott Young. We have property on Lewiston Road, 155 to 169. I don't write real fast.
That's all right.
I don't have, I think their point is great. Adams was a great point. Just a little different twist. Reading the proposed ordinances, it doesn't really, you have the right to, so we don't know, like Shaker Road, for instance, whether you're gonna be permanent 365 days a year, or whether it's just when the ground's frozen. But to me, that road of all roads, you know, is a state road, well-built, and are you really having that much truck traffic? It seems like 26A is working really good. And from a selfish standpoint, as Adam mentioned, I have a pickup truck. And I come to Gray sometimes, 2 or 3 times a day. I live up on 26, just over the New Gloucester line. And I have a pickup truck, but it happens to be registered for 26,000 pounds, because I have to be able to haul a trailer with a Kubota on it. So I have to be 26,000 pounds. So now if I want to come down, go to the bank or Napa or get something to eat or have a Lonnie dog, I got to go 26A or go, I'm not sure what other roads, if you post Weymouth Road, I mean, it's just going to make it really miserable. And I think that, that's just ridiculous to me. I just hope all of you kind of, look into this a little bit more. This just seems like you're just going too far. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak?
Brad Skilling, 149 Mountain View Road in Gray. I actually own 23 acres in center of Gray Corner. I actually own a pit there that I'm supposed to be wavered, but if I have someone haul into me, are they gonna be fined and pulled over? And if I have a sub haul into my pit,
Yes, yeah.
they will
Any-
be fined?
Yes. Any
All right, I want,
business,
question number one, what's the criteria from taking the MDOT road? What did you have to prove to the state to get this weight reduction? It's just like when we come in into the town office for a zoning board, we have certain things that we have to meet. We have 5 criteria, we have to meet every one of those 5.
there is
And I don't know what your criteria were to turn this road over into.
there is a Maine Department of Transportation criteria that you have to follow, and the town did follow and complete all of those steps.
Yeah, I would like to know
We
what they are.
also submitted the ordinance to the DOT, and actually the change from 26,000 pounds to 23 is something the DOT requested that we do to match their weight limit.
Yeah, well, what is the criteria? Because I'm on that road 7 days a week. I'm in and out of that pit 7 days a week.
Any
In
business,
7 days a week, last year I saw 1 bike on the road. And that bike was stolen from Jason Wilson and taken through my pit. 1 bike. This year I've seen 3 boys on a bike. As far as walking traffic, safety concerns, I think that's way out of line. I don't believe there's ever been a fatality on Route 26. I think if you look at the state police or the Cumberland County records as far as accidents on that road, you'll find very minimal. I think this is a ploy by this town council to get this road limited so they can do their infrastructure in the town walking. I think the last 2 councils, this has been their agenda, is to get this into a walking town or a bicycle town. And truthfully, it's not. And I says, and you're putting people out of business and making a hardship for those that are in business and trying to stay in business. We've been in business 60 years. And in 60 years, this is the first time I've ever come to the town council. My father would spin in his grave. He would spin in his grave to see what you guys have done in this town and what you've taken away from the businesses in this town. You guys, how many of you were affected by this change on 26? How many, any of you affected at all? Is there any loss of income?
I'm gonna let you finish your comments, the
All
council will
right.
speak
Well,
after.
I'm just saying, I see no list of criteria. Safety to me is not an issue on the road. I have never seen an accident, I've never seen a fatality. As far as walking traffic, I can count 15 to 20 people a day on those new sidewalks. We're going to an awful expense in this town for people to walk. You know, and we're taking away livelihood of companies in the process. It doesn't come out of your pocket, but it surely comes out of ours. You know, I've been pretty lucky. I've let the town use my right-of-way to dump their snow so they can get back to their property. And we've always worked with the town. We've donated. We've done this and that. And I just said to my wife last night, I'm losing sleep over this. 60 years we've been in business. I lose sleep over this because you guys are taking my livelihood away, and you guys don't think anything of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments on the weight limit?
Yeah, Lonnie Humphrey from New Gloucester. Just my kind of thoughts on it is the way the council's looking at things, and you guys don't have much, seem to have much business in sight or look into what the community, it's really a community of hardworking people that have been here a lot of years, doing a lot of things good for the community. Their parents lived here, their kids live here, a lot of people live here, the same as me. And you guys just want this little community, yuppie trails, muffin shops, and things like that, and you don't think about the business people and the people that are paying taxes and paying fees and paying stuff, and you kind of like, it seems like you're in a fairy tale world, and you're not thinking about the people that have supported the town and made the town what it is over a lot of years. My grandparents lived here, my parents live here, my kids live here. And I just think you guys are not a good representation of what the town has been, and you're taking the town the way you want it to go, maybe not the way it's gone, and supporting some of the working people that have made the town what it is. Nobody's here to do bad by the town or wreck the town. The town is where it is today because a lot of the people sitting here. But I think you guys have just got blinders on and going just so much the other way and not letting it be a working community or people making their living in the community, and you don't really care what their overhead is or their tax base is or their ability to make a living. You're just taking it so far the other way so you can, I don't know, go down in history and say we made Gray a little yuppie granola town. I'm not really sure what your site is and what you want to do, but I'm quite discouraged with you guys as a unit and the way things are going here lately. I'm 61, been here 61 years, and it's just really going against what Gray stood for a lot of years, a working community, a bedroom community, people making their livings through doing various contract and various things, and you guys are trying to, I don't know what you're trying to steer it into, I'm not really sure. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Sue Austin. I am a resident of Gray, and I don't think of myself as a historian yet, but I do feel that it might be a good idea to share what Gray went through before the bypass was accepted. Over the years, actually probably as much as 3 decades, proposals were brought forth, and either the state didn't agree, and that's a harsh word, it didn't mesh, or Gray didn't agree. So the time passed, more and more proposals, and finally, consensus rose. And through the great work of the Shaw Brothers, who were the lowest bidders, came in underbid, ahead of time, saved money on the project, we opened the bypass, which is now called the Maine Wildlife Parkway. The moment the ribbon cutting was done by the Governor, Baldacci, there was a release of pressure in the center of Gray. It's what people had waited for years and years, to be able to at least get out and get into some of the stores, maybe have a place to park, without the constant compression. So we've enjoyed that. And I think, I haven't taken a poll with all of the different pieces of construction, but certainly there have been many around us as the Gorham bypass. I would feel comfortable saying that it met the goals. And I guess what baffles me now is why we would want to take and close a federal state highway, the best built in town, and bring the compression right back into the center. If you need it explained to you, I'm sure we could all show it on paper or in our speaking. There is no way that you can shut that down and not experience the tightening, the stacking. You've got 4 lights now, because even another light has been added since the bypass, because of the exit, new exit on the turnpike, so that it could go straight up the bypass, so it could relieve the pressure. And here we are now. We're going to drive it right back in the center. And as far as the gentlemen that are here with you tonight, they're the dirt devils that create the foundation on which we all ride. And I just don't understand not taking that into great consideration. Secondly, to to the point on Mayo, I'll have a question at the end. Please remind me. We have a lot of school traffic, and it is highly directed at the Dunn School and the Pineland campus. So we have got buses going up and down and up and down and up and down Yarmouth Road and Depot Road to get to the campus. Now, to me, that would have been, I would think, a consideration, to have checked maybe with the transportation people at our school system and just had maybe their view on how many starts and stops, even for the population of our students on that road versus the short Mayo. And again, as has been alluded to here by the big trucks, Wheel is trying to turn maybe. I bet these guys would take you for a ride if you want to really experience. And I'm not being the least bit facetious. You need to get up behind one of those to really understand the power that is moving forward. So I'm concerned about that too, for the kiddos. We not only have Dunn, but we have the special school right there on the campus, and I'm sorry, I can't remember their name right now. Their children from all around Gray, Wyndham, I see all of the minibuses and the private cars bringing students to that one. So we've got a lot of little young folks. So I guess I would ask you to really think about that consideration. I do think it would be fair for you, perhaps, Sandy, to share with these folks that have taken the time to get out what the criteria was after much mediation for the town of Gray to meet to be allowed to do this. This is not a common procedure. This is not even encouraged. And I feel that they have a right to hear what you have said you will do or that you are going to do in the many meetings that you had with Commissioner Van Noo, all of the hierarchy of Maine DOT. I think they deserve that. And I hope that you will reconsider the seriousness of this situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Yep, go ahead, Adam.
I just had one other follow-up. I had a question for you guys I was gonna ask, and I think we made comments, and I thought now was probably as good a time as any. This is something I truly would love to have explained to me, is what is the agenda behind the 23,000 on Short Shaker Road? Why are we doing it? That's what I really wanna know, why.
Yep, I think the council will add comments when it's
Okay.
our turn to talk, to explain.
So that was my question I had for you guys,
Sure.
so.
Thank you, Adam. Anyone else? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone online or any chats, so I'm going to close the public hearing. So I'm looking for a motion for the council to approve the proposed changes to the vehicle use and weight restriction ordinance, chapter 501.
A point of information.
Yeah,
We can't discuss an item until we have a motion on the floor.
right.
So as to understand, we're not discounting people's conversation, and we're not gonna not have a conversation ourselves. But the way the process works is we have to make a motion. The majority of us have to agree to it before the council as a whole can discuss it, because none of us as individuals have any authority whatsoever. We only have authority as a council. So I just wanted to make that clear to people. I'll second it.
I need a motion
Oh,
first.
I'll make the motion. I move.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Marty will second, and we'll open it for conversation. First of all, just so everyone is aware, this weight restriction ordinance is already in effect. This happened in the fall. I'm not sure, Adam, why you didn't receive a notification, but we have a list of businesses that the letter, we had a approved letter, we shared it with the DOT. It was mailed out to not only businesses in every resident on, supposed to have been mailed out on every resident on Shaker, Gray Park, sunrise, yep. But we also took the extra step under the recommendation of the DOT to reach out to haulers outside of the town, including Shaw Brothers, Hannaford's, any large truck that regularly goes through the town of Gray. So I believe the town manager can pull that list from the planning department. There is a criteria, as Susan Austin advised. It is a process that the DOT requires towns to go through. They provided that requirement to us, and that we can share with anyone who would like to see that, to meet that. It's been an ongoing conversation with the DOT for a couple of years, actually, discussing this. So I want to make that clear. There was 2 public hearings held. We had workshops, we had meetings with the DOT, and all of this happened last year into this year. The ordinance that is before us this evening is a revision to the existing ordinance that's in effect. So we want to make that, I want to make that clear as well. As far as the driving factor, this is again part of our work to implement the comp plan. It actually it was brought forward to us by a petition by residents. We had over 43 or 45 residents sign a petition asking us to look at putting the weight limit on Mayo, short Mayo. And that actually was what opened the conversation. As we've heard earlier, through that, as Adam alluded, there is a sign, no through trucks on Marie Street, which does not actually have any weight to it, because you need to have this type of ordinance in effect for the town to be able to post roads and to implement them. In fact, this ordinance should have been on the books in order for us to post winter weight limits, and it was never on the books. So there were a lot of items driving the original ordinance. So you'll see that Marie Street is on there, short Mayo. As far as short Shaker, through the comp plan, which we had approximately 500 residents participate in the development of the comp plan. It was put before the voters. It took 18 months to almost 2 full years for the comp plan to be developed. It was approved with the highest voter turnout. 79% of the people voted to approve it. In addition to that, we recently had the village visioning session as we're working on the Main Street infrastructure project and the Yarmouth Road infrastructure project with the DOT. And one of the items that comes up over and over again, we had over 200 people participate in that, residents of the town of Gray, was to please get as many of the heavy trucks out of the village as possible. I agree with the bypass being one of the big changes to try to help get that traffic out. But what we have seen over time, and it's not just the dump trucks, but it's the 18-wheelers, that traffic is slipping back into the village to avoid the bypass. We actually have recently removed the Route 26 designation from Short Shaker and made the bypass Route 26 to get rid of the 26A, because we believe some of that is causing the confusion with some of the heavy tractor trailer drivers. We've seen tractor drivers, and the DOT has counted them for us as well, leave the interchange and take a right, I don't know why, into the village, only to take a left on Short Shaker to get back to the bypass. And they do it the opposite way as well. And we believe there was some confusion over the routing number. So in order for us to facilitate that, part of the requirements to have a posting is that the alternative route has to be short, and it has to be both in distance and time for the users to get around. The bypass versus Short Shaker is 0.4 miles, and I do understand that does add time with traffic. It is posted at a higher speed than Short Shaker, so there should be some makeup there. And so the purpose of the bypass is to get heavy traffic out of the village. The other piece of that is on, and I can't speak to the angles on Depot Road, but we did have Public Works look at that for us as well. But that is interesting. I'd like to hear a little bit more about the line of sight issues there. So that is pretty much the driving force behind this. And also, as far as the walkability and biking, yes, you're absolutely right. We have been asked repeatedly. We've had endless comments and people coming to talk to us about the fact that they do not feel safe walking in the village. And it's because of the road conditions, it's because of the type of traffic, it's because of speed. It's a lot of factors. So we are working along with the DOT. There's going to be a major infrastructure projects for Main Street and Route 115. We do also recognize that a lot of the traffic coming through our village is being driven by the fact that we have a toll booth in New Gloucester. And we have worked for 5 to 6 years with the MTA to try to get them to reduce that toll or to help work with us on that, to no avail, unfortunately. We did do a diversion study, which we can share with everyone, to show you the level of traffic that is coming through the town that we believe is related to that as well. All of the businesses on any of the posted roads are exempt from the weight limit, and that includes any business being done with those businesses on that road. So that is part of the ordinance. In addition, people who live on the road, if they have deliveries or services being made to their homes, that is exempt as well. In addition to that, we did put a ability for businesses who wish to get a permit, for local businesses that wish to get a permit or an exemption from this weight, they can come and make that case to the town, and we can grant those permits for local businesses. And that, of course, does not apply to people who are just driving through the town. So just to clarify some of those points. Other comments? Dan?
Yeah, I think, to follow up on that, the state statute under which weight ordinances have to be created has a list of vehicles that are exempt. And I'm not gonna remember them all. School buses are top of the list. No school bus is prevented from going down any weight restricted road. Feed trucks, milk delivery trucks, any delivery truck, anything being delivered to a address along that road is exempt from the weight ordinance. As Sue Austin told us, what the history of the bypass, unfortunately, and you know this, some of you know this probably better than I, Yarmouth Road was improved pretty much along its whole length until it got to the top of Weeks Hill. And the state ran out of money and stopped. And that's more than 35 years ago now that's been sitting there. And we have stormwater problems on that section of road, and people have always hoped that that section of road would be fixed. When the bypass was built, the design that was agreed upon is not the bypass that we have. If you were here then, or if you remember back to that, originally, both the north and southbound traffic were supposed to get off on the other side of the road. They were going to connect the bypass over through Turnpike Acres to Route 26, the Portland Road. Again, because of money, because of what they said were some technical issues, both the Maine Turnpike Authority and MDOT bailed on the town of Gray again and didn't build the bypass the way it was intended to be built. When they built the bypass, they said that they expected that we would have about 10 years respite before the traffic on Main Street started to increase again. And it has. The bypass handles its traffic, but the traffic studies are showing that the traffic on Main Street is starting to approach the same numbers of vehicles that it was before we ever built the bypass. Now, the bike ped thing is obviously a sore spot for some people. Clearly, we're not making decisions based on strictly whether people can walk or bicycle. But the crosswalks on Main Street don't even meet Maine MDOT's rules for the distance someone has to cross a road in the time that's allowed. Brown Street, the intersection of Brown Street and Yarmouth Road, everyone knows how difficult that corner is if you're trying to go to the library. So under the project that's under development now, that will encompass all of Yarmouth Road and Main Street from the VFW down through to the Turnpike, changes Brown Street so that it is a intersection with Hancock Street. that's gonna make it impossible for any truck coming down 115 to make the turn onto Brown Street and continue down Shaker Road. Perhaps you could come down to Main Street, make a right, and then make a quick left onto Shaker Road. But given the speeds and everything else, it seems to make sense to go straight down to the bypass from there. Now, some of these other changes haven't taken place yet, and quite frankly, some of them are probably years away. But the route designation change has happened, and what we call Short Shaker, just so people understand what we're talking about, is a town road. It is not a state highway anymore. So I've heard a couple of other things that I thought were important to address.
Dan, I'm just gonna jump in, just to clarify that. When they replaced the stormwater, when the state replaced the stormwater on Short Shaker, they were able to then hand it over to us under the urban compact.
Right.
And the Main Street infrastructure project that's coming, when they replace that stormwater, they're gonna hand Main Street over to us to take care of moving forward.
Well, they tried to hand Main Street over to the town, but we knew that the stormwater system was 50-plus years old, and there's 4 different kinds of pipe under there, and some of it's rotten, and they're coming to do an emergency fix later this year at the corner of Yarmouth Road and Main Street, because a car fell through one of the manholes. That's a short-term fix, but yes, they tried to turn Main Street over to us, and we said not until you fix the stormwater, and it took us 4 years and probably about $10,000 to finally get the state to admit that they owned that project, and it's because of that project that we'll be able to replace the stormwater, that Gray Water District will be able to replace their old infrastructure on Main Street that goes down towards the golf course and the old coal farms, and take care of some of the water quality problems down that end of the road. There's a lot of moving parts to this, and they benefit a lot of different people. And there are conflicting interests, there's no doubt about it. What would be great for one person would be considered horrible by another, and so we have to find a way to split that and figure out a path forward. I don't think the instance of the pickup truck and the trailer, you can drive your pickup down Short Shaker, not if you're hauling your trailer, but you can drive your pickup truck down Short Shaker.
They go by registered weight. We get pulled over, it goes by registered weight.
Then that's, thank you for the education, that's something that I didn't realize.
That's from experience.
Well, and it's interesting because the DOT, it's the DOT 23,000 is the DOT weight, and their comments to us is to post it as commercial trucks restricted. And so that's an interesting conversation that I think we should have back with them,
With MDOT,
so
yeah.
they can better understand their own weight limit.
The other piece about Marie being no-through trucks, the no-through truck designation has no legal bearing. When we started to get into this, a lot of towns throw up no-through truck signs on the hopes that people will pay attention to them, but they're not enforceable. We have some other traffic ordinances that we have to work on after we resolve this one. But I think that at this point in time is all I have to say.
Well, and actually, you know what, I'm
Yeah.
gonna change, I think we need to set, the motion that's on the floor will have to amend to set the second reading,
Okay.
right?
Oh, yeah, that's not in there.
Yeah. Anyway,
So-
any
so
other
hard to say,
comments?
but I
Krista?
Yeah, I don't have much more to add. I think Dan and Sandy touched on a lot of the points I would have made. I agree that the main impetus behind these changes is to implement direction we've received from many residents over a period of the last 2 to 3 years. And that was outlined in our comprehensive plan, and then further outlined in the village visioning work we completed last year. And it's addressing primarily safety issues in the village, but also ideally creating foot traffic also creates business. And that's really the aim, is that we want to increase livability in the village, but also the variations and types of businesses we see in town. And in regards to short shaker in particular, one of the safety issues that Sue Austin was pointing out were school buses. And there are 2 schools on short shaker, and also recreational facilities behind the schools that are used frequently by small children and families. And they're, the trucks traveling down that road at speeds in excess of the speed limit, which we see often, does create a safety issue. The other thing I wanted to address, I recognize, as Adam pointed out, that the businesses in town pay taxes to support our roads and infrastructure, and that is important. The people of this town also pay taxes, and all of those taxes go to support maintaining our roadways. If we don't control the types of traffic that deteriorate our roads at a rapid pace, then we are just in the long run paying more taxes, businesses and residents alike. So Short Mail Road, Short Shaker Road, Marie Street, and any town road, we pay to maintain and repair. And these ordinances help us do that less often. That's all I just wanted to add.
Any comments?
Just to,
Yes, I'd like to comment on the posting of Mayall Road. It's posted for 10,000 pounds, and that's just a pickup truck. And that's all, only comment I'm gonna say.
yeah, I mean, in the case of, when we were talking about this, we've got Portland Sand and Gravel on Mayo Road. We have the Wilkinsons and the Skillings on Short Shaker. We've been talking about weight limits in various ways for a couple of years now. It is important that people share what they're thinking, but it's a good idea to share it as soon as you have that thought. For instance, I've had several conversations with Adam. I haven't heard from anybody else on this particular issue. We've had the comp plan work. We talked about Mail Road, it's gotta be 18 months ago now. It's valuable if people come forward with their ideas. We're not gonna say ultimately that everybody's gonna be happy with everything. But I think it's valuable for people to come forward, or to give somebody a call, or to have a conversation, especially before they get to the point like either they feel they have no say, or they're so angry they have trouble talking about it. We have made a lot of changes in this weight limit ordinance, and it's been an attempt in the 3 that I mentioned to make sure that we are not affecting the livelihood of the Skillins or Wilkinsons or the folks at Portland Sand and Gravel, but somehow find to split the difference. And it's important that people have accurate information. For instance, like school buses. School buses are allowed everywhere. I second Sandy's comments, Adam's comments about the angles. We depend on the folks in Public Works a lot for their expertise with roads. Because obviously none of us are engineers or excavators. So I would just encourage you, if you have a thought, if you have an idea, pick up the phone and make a call. Our phone numbers are there, my phone number's there, or send us an email. Don't sit on your thoughts, and don't sit on your complaints either, for that matter. I can't promise that they're all gonna get addressed. Actually, I could probably promise that they're not all gonna get addressed. But these conversations are good to have, and they're better to have at the beginning of a process than when we're on the cusp of a decision and we find out that either we've missed something or we don't have the support from some aspect of the community. I know we have support from other aspects of the community to make these changes. I'm really comfortable with that. But I heard a lot of fear about the future. Marie was done in '82. We did Short Mayall a year and a half ago. Now we're adding shaker, short shaker to it,
Short shaker was added in October.
Yeah.
well, in October. And, you know, people are kind of worrying about roads like Weymouth Road or the rest of Mayo Road. 3 years ago, you know, there was conversation about talking to the state about those roads, but we turned that down because we didn't want to lose control over those roads. It's not the council's goal to all of a sudden start making lots of roads weight restricted, but there are some key ones that figure into the pattern of traffic. And so from my point of view, given the considerations we made for the Skillings and the Wilkinsons, this seems like a good compromise to me.
Thanks. No, you can actually. No, it's with the council right now, so it's the process, it's the way.
So Shaker Road is already posted at 23,000 pounds right now?
26. 26. Excuse me, you guys cannot interrupt I closed the public. Okay, I understand that. We don't make up the rules with how the meetings are run. The meeting is the public hearing part has been closed. It's the council's turn to talk, unfortunately. There's going to be, any additional comments or questions can certainly be sent to us after. I am going to tell you that we will get that MDO checklist. As far as Weymouth Road or other roads, one of the criteria is there has to be a relatively short alternative route. It has to be close and it has to be short. You cannot limit something like Weymouth with no alternative route. That's within a certain period of time.
Or Mayo.
Or Mayo Road, for that matter. Short Mayo was different because of Depot Road, Short Shaker because of the bypass, Marie Street because of Weymouth. And so you'll see that in the DOT checklist, which I think will answer some of those questions. We'll make sure that the diversion study information is made available. We're gonna definitely check on the notification letters and that list to make sure that we verify that. And then talk to the DOT about the $23,000 limit versus regular trucks, non-commercial vehicles, to get clarification from them.
And also the line of sight.
And the line of sight will be something we refer to the Public Works.
Point of information,
Yeah,
this is the first reading for this, so we're not making a decision tonight to pass this. This is, we have the charter requires us to have 2 readings before we actually can pass an ordinance. So this is our first reading, public hearing. We've gotten some feedback. There's gonna be a second reading unless we decide to make changes to this, and then we would have to start the process over again. So this, I don't want people to think that this is your last opportunity to have input tonight, because it's not. The process isn't always clear to people, and that's, I don't mean to offend anybody, but that's why I wanted to explain it.
yeah. Any other comments from the council? Okay, so we do need to amend that proposed changes. It should be the council approves and sets a second reading and public hearing on June 6, 2023,
Yep.
to review and approve the proposed changes. Dan,
Yep.
are you set with that motion
I am,
amendment?
yep.
Marty, are you set with that motion amendment?
Yes.
Okay. So we will set the second read is the motion before us. Krista?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes,
Marty?
Yes,
And I'm also a yes. So there'll be a second public hearing and reading on June 6th, and we'll get that material to you. If you have additional comments or questions, I strongly encourage you to reach out to us directly before then, if possible, and we'll see what we can do to help answer those questions. Any communication we have, we disclose at our next meeting, so it will be shared then as well. Next item on the agenda is action items, and although this is on our agenda, I am looking for a motion to table the approval for the request of winter maintenance via rural public street easement submitted by Woodcock Drive.
so moved.
second,
Krista?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes,
Marty?
yes.
And I'm also a yes. Yeah. We'll let the room clear.
give people a minute.
Yeah.
Actually, can we recess for 5?
Do you want to? You need a break?
Yeah, just quickly, 5 minutes.
Okay. So do you,
No, that's all right, never mind.
oh, you're all set?
Yeah, never mind.
Okay. You're all set, okay. Okay, next item on the agenda. Doug, can you close the door, please?
No, it's good.
Oh, never mind. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, I'm looking for a motion to the council to approve a letter from the town discharging the option to purchase property as outlined on the Depot Road parcel deed identified as tax mat lot 045-033-028-000.
So moved.
I'll
Marty, and then Dan.
Yep.
Comments on this? We had
Nope,
this at
we-
our workshop.
Yeah,
Last week, we had the property owners come and share the information, and we had no objections at that time.
There was something we were supposed to sign. Oh, that's right. that's it.
Yeah.
we had,
So if we approve this, it has to be notarized, and I believe we have a notary in the back. So we will wait, and directly following the meeting, if everyone could take a moment to sign and have this notarized, it would be great. I'll go to vote. Any other comments, Krista?
Could we take a break and have her do that now, so she
We
doesn't have to
could.
sit through
Yep.
the?
Okay, you'll get your 5-minute break.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
so this was, just to explain to people, this is for a landlocked parcel of land where there was, the town had an option to buy it at one
for
point.
cemetery
For
use only.
cemetery use
For-
only,
However many years ago.
for a very long time ago, longer ago than I'm even old. And we're basically releasing them from, or I'm not sure what the right word is, but we're, basically,
Our
the town's
option.
giving up our option for that piece of property.
Great. Any other comments? Krista?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes,
Marty?
Yes.
I'm also yes. And with that, we're going to take a 5-minute recess so we can sign and notarize the documentation for the applicant, and we'll resume our meeting at
15.
8:15. Thank you, and we're rejoining our meeting after a short recess to sign some paperwork. The next item on the agenda, I am looking for a motion for the council to appoint Susan Terskoff as the warden for the election to be held on June 13th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any conversation?
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Krista?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Next item on the agenda is for the council to approve the municipal warrant for the town meeting to be held on June 13th, 2023, as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? So we approved the warrant articles previously as the text, and this is the actual warrant. The ballot was already submitted back in April 19th, so hopefully we're approving it. Any other comments?
I guess, yeah, so we approved the text of the warrants before, and
Yeah,
then
the
this is
warrant articles. This is actually us essentially calling the meeting, the town meeting, which is a
Okay.
referendum, and approving the warrant that will be presented to
Okay.
voters.
That was just unclear. I understand.
It's like a two-step process.
Got it.
My only concern is there's a couple little formatting issues I hope can kind of get squared away.
Okay.
Well, it may be also converted to the agenda
Yeah,
packet
I mean,
versus
yeah.
actual, but if you want to.
For Article 3, just the way it's under, excuse me, the whole thing is under parentheses, and it really should be administration. And then if you want to use parentheses, clerk, HR, elections, et cetera.
That may not, that's not probably a formatting issue, that's probably how it's gonna show.
And then there's an extra return between law enforcement and community service agencies in that same article.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. We can tidy that up.
And then on Article 5, there's definitely a formatting issue going on
Yeah.
there with Public Works, town vehicles, and I
that
think
one
you
may
could,
be the packet
yeah.
conversion.
I think Public Works, vehicles, and equipment work just as well, but I
Yeah.
don't know if we voted on town vehicles or not. And the same with FY '25 capital project reserve.
Okay.
So I think that it's confusing enough as it is, so.
Yeah,
The other piece is Article 14, where the fiscal note at the very end. I don't think you need the parentheses at all, really, in that particular case. I mean, you're just
just say
making a
fiscal
note there.
note, yeah.
Okay, that's the formatting from the attorney, but I can
Could-
look into that.
When I
Well,
see
and-
parentheses like that, I almost feel like I should be looking for some reference in the body, do you know what I mean? But,
And this was submitted, so it may already be too late to
Yeah.
do that, but,
I look forward to a discussion about warrants next year.
well, yeah, you had a good question about some of it, so once you get the answer on that, I will maybe allow you to do a little more cleanup.
Yeah,
We'll ask whether these edits can be made as minor adjustments.
okay.
Well, I just think they've been sent to the printer, so. The vendor, on April 19th, so whatever
Right,
we
right.
submit is
Okay.
probably what the ballot's gonna show.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Nope,
Krista?
Yes.
Dan?
yes.
Marty?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Next item on the agenda, I'm looking for the council to approve a 180-day extension of the moratorium on self-storage developments to December 27th, 2023, with the acknowledgement that, wait a minute, nope. That's not right. It's June 30th, 2023. Oh, I caught that. June 30th, 2023, with the acknowledgement that reasonable progress is being made towards addressing ordinance updates as per 30-A M.R.S. Section 435.6.2.
So moved.
Second?
And there was a question from a member of the audience earlier, and I asked him to send that to me via email tomorrow
Okay.
to address this.
What was the question?
It was about our ability to extend and the reasoning behind it. And since there was no public comment, I just asked him to please send me that specific question so that I could address it.
Planning Director. We have confirmed with legal that the council has the ability to extend the moratorium.
Okay, and that's what I explained, but I think he wants a little more behind that, but he's gonna send me his specific question.
As to why?
Yeah,
Sure, okay.
thank Thank you.
Can I just clarify?
Yeah.
You're saying that the moratorium would only be extended until June 30th, 2023?
Yeah, well, that's what I have on my notes here.
Doug, can you just confirm, is the desired end date?
Oh, no, it's another 180 days.
Yeah, so
We
that
already
would be-
extended it for June
Right,
30th.
so it would be until December 27th, 2023. That would be.
Oh, that
another-
is correct.
Yeah,
then.
that's correct.
Okay.
June 30th is mentioned at the end of the
Okay,
clause there.
excuse me.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
Krista, you're okay with that original reading of the
Yes, the
motion? And
original
Dan?
reading is fine.
And just a reminder to everyone watching, it is likely the moratorium won't last that long.
Yes.
But we extend it 180-day blocks, but we are taking up the self-storage, the final issue that remains, hopefully at a June 12th workshop. It's not guaranteed yet because we haven't finally set the schedule for that, but that is our projected date to have that final discussion. Once the council makes the decision at that final discussion, then the ordinance can be brought back
First read.
for a first read again and second read, and that likely would not take us till December.
It also-
The moratorium could then just be repealed.
Yep, as an integral part of the second reading. Yep,
Right,
June
correct.
12th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our goal is definitely not to take
Yeah,
any longer
please.
than necessary
No, yeah,
to finish the
that's right.
storage unit ordinance.
Right. Any other comments? Krista?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes,
I'm also yes. Next item on the agenda is I am looking for a motion, I'm going to read the whole thing, to approve changes to the personnel policy. Proposed changes include clarifying the mission statement and the administration of policy, adding language to personnel file administration and conflict of interest sections, editing certain benefits language and political activity requirements, and adding safety-related protocols. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll
second.
Marty, will second? Okay, and I believe we have a memo
Yeah,
from
There's a memo
Jonathan.
from John on page 51. John and I reviewed the material together, and I think he's made some skillful edits, extensive and skillful edits to the personnel policy that address issues that he has encountered and identified over the course of the last year. So we agreed to hold off on presenting this material until now. He and I did. And so I'm happy to try to speak to any of the items on the memo or to answer any of the questions if I can.
Questions, comments?
I didn't
No?
It is pretty extensive, but they all made sense to me. I think it's probably just the way of the world that there'll always be adjustments to this as time goes on.
Yeah, and I think, I think it's a good step forward. I think we have found that our policies need to be reviewed regularly, and it's a good habit to get into. I didn't have any specific questions on the changes. I did note that we had discussed the grievance section as being a little too vague.
Yep.
So that might be something to take up at another,
Maybe that's his
The
next, his
the next iteration.
crack at that, yep.
Yeah, but I do appreciate the legal clarifications and making sure that we're compliant with state law, especially the definition changes and the changes to clarify the responsibilities, so. Dan?
Well, one thing that I do, I think is good and that we should do as a rule, that we should refer to state statutes for definitions whenever possible, as opposed to writing them in our ordinances, so that when the state makes changes, then we don't have to make changes to our ordinance. Because unless they, of course, change the statute, but.
Makes it a little easier to keep
Yeah,
up.
it eliminates a lot of the clerical changes that we have to make, and it also makes it easier. There's less to keep track of that way.
Yeah.
There's a few editing, formatting things, but I'm just gonna assume that's because it's in our agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any final comments? Krista?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Marty?
yes,
And I'm also yes.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the chair report. And as reported at our 5/9/23 workshop, Counselor Michael Curtis resigned effective 5/3/2023. Applications are being sought now through June 9th for consideration by the council to fill the vacancy until the June 11th, 2024 election. Applications will be considered at the June 20th meeting by the new council. Volunteer award nominations are still open and can be submitted through May 26th. The Gray Community Day, as a reminder, is set for June 24th, and I know Lisa's been reaching out to the committees who are anxiously awaiting more information for planning their participation. I did start having conversations with my committee, so I recommend, if you haven't already done that, that you bring it up to your committees as well to let them know about the date and see who might be available to help participate in that day on behalf of their committees. I wanted to recognize and thank Randy Visser and Corey Norman, as well as Kyle, for their work in producing the first episode of a new community series called Hard Tellin' Not Knowin', which is being broadcast on GCTV and available on the town's YouTube channel. It was a really great episode featuring the Nordic walking program, a short virtual clip of cross-country skiing at Libby Hill Trails, and a really great conversation with Randy Cookson to talk all things transfer station. I look forward to more episodes, and if you haven't checked it out, you're missing out, because it was really, really good. Nate and I met with Nate Stone and Larry Zuckerman to continue the discussion around the use of Douglas Field this year with a possible solution in process. A reminder for each of us that our annual reports from committees are due to Kyle by 7/31/2023. That means we need to be discussing them at our upcoming June committee meetings, so that members can draft and finalize and approve their reports in their July meeting, so we can meet the deadline of 7/31/2023.
A point of information.
Yeah.
I know in the past, I believe Nate has talked about the roles of the staff and those committees that do have staff. And I thought it was gonna be part of their role to do that for those committees. Am I remembering correctly?
Well, I think it depends, like, the Open Space Committee, we have a member who volunteers to write it.
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely. But
DMS, we have, well, Mo's kind of our liaison, but we kind of do it as well. But you mean to remind them of doing it?
Well, I just wanted, I guess, clarification from Nate
Yeah.
as to what their role will be in that.
Well, my expectation would be they would either facilitate or, at the discretion of the chair, write the report.
Okay.
So the fallback is town liaison staff will produce that material. The preferred approach would be for the chair and the members to
To do
write it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
Or at least to provide substantial support for
Yeah.
drafting.
thank you.
that's a good point, Dan, thanks. Krista and I have met a couple times to discuss transition of chairs' responsibilities. In addition, the council had our Teams training last Friday, and I'll be working with Kyle to transition the workbook into that application. Next, that's all I have. Next item on the agenda is the report from the town manager.
Thank you, Counselor. My report is on page 116 of your packet. I have a few additional items to mention, but I wanted to ask first whether you had any questions about my written report. I wanted to point out that the annual report for the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office is included in the attached material on page 119. It's quite extensive, and we'll ask that this be posted also to the town website for anybody who wants to see it. Make a note real quick.
I think we don't.
We have a page for that now.
Yeah, for this.
Yeah, you had asked for that
Yep,
before.
Cumberland, yep.
So we'll make sure that gets done. I wanted to note on top of my report, I noted the time off that I have scheduled for vacation time. I'm also going to be off Monday and Tuesday of next week. I'm scheduled. I wanted to note that the Depot Road construction project has started. Including the 210-second wait for the light to change, for you to change directions. So I just put that out there for anybody who might be traveling that way. Give yourself an additional 210 seconds. It goes by quickly. I wanted to recognize that the town's Margaret Chase Smith Summer Internship Program intern Hope Carroll started her first day her internship today, and we welcome her. Also wanted to point out a few items that have been submitted by staff subsequent to my report. Doug gave me an email today just reminding me, prompting that council, the planning department would request some time with council to get input on next steps for implementation of LD 2003. We can't draft the standards for consideration, for your consideration, without some policy guidance from the council first. And if you could consider a workshop or some form for that conversation at your upcoming meetings, the planning department and I would greatly appreciate it, if you can make time. A reminder, we'll remind everyone again that the town's election is on Tuesday, June the 13th. And we're working on the final steps toward that process. And you've taken 2 actions this evening that will contribute to that. Did I get everything, Doug, as far as what you, okay. I wanted to just surface that I had a conversation that I reported to you at your last workshop with some residents on Ramsdale Road who were requesting assistance from the town for dealing with degradation of their road after the major storm event on, I believe it was May the 1st. I've got some material and information, the specifics of the public easement road policy. I've spoken with the town attorney. The town is not obligated to provide any support for that, but if the council was, if we receive any information from them making that request, I'll bring it, at least forward it to the council for your consideration if you want us to explore other alternatives. But I just wanted to clarify all of that because it came up at the meeting the other day. And I believe that's all that I have.
Great, thank you. I made a note. The 6-1 workshop is the public forum for Yarmouth Road. I don't think prior to our meeting is enough time for that type of discussion. So it's possible the June 12th workshop, and again, possible until I set the agenda, where we're talking about self-storage, the other half of that could potentially be used for LD 12003 conversation.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The Yarmouth Road, I thought that was June 1st?
June 1st, sorry.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
Because the letters went
Did
out.
I say second?
Okay.
It's not on a
June 1st.
Friday, trust me. We do Fridays only when we're forced. So, yes, forced.
Bless you.
Okay, so maybe the 12th is what I'm giving you a heads up with. If we do self-storage, maybe LD 2003 might fit at that. No guarantee.
It would be helpful if you told us what you were looking for ahead of time.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is committee reports, and we'll start with Krista.
Okay. The Ordinance Advisory Committee will be reconvening at the end of this month. Doug just sent out an email today to detailing what we'll be discussing. The Resiliency Committee's regular meeting is scheduled for May 25th, but I will be reaching out to the committee as I have a conflict that afternoon with the GPCOG General Assembly. That does not mean they can't meet, but I will inquire about that. As part of the Resiliency Committee, the Community Resilience Partnership Cohort of New Gloucester, Durham, and Gray met on May 3rd. And GPCOG's Executive Committee was scheduled to meet today, but we did not meet quorum, so we've rescheduled it for next Tuesday. And just a reminder that the General Assembly is on May 25th of next week at St. Joseph's College. A couple things related to GPCOG. The staff at GPCOG submitted testimony in support of LD, what is this? 17.3, and then I wrote the P, which I know is not a number, so I don't know what, I forget what that one was. Basically, it's in support of TIF extensions, specifically for transportation and affordable housing projects. And also, they're looking for submissions for their What Works segment for the General Assembly, and I did not have any immediate ideas for Gray, so if anybody has an idea and would like me to speak to it at the Assembly, please let me know. That's all I have for my committees.
All right, thank you. Dan?
Planning board met on the 11th. They had a short discussion about the Wilson subdivision, which is up off Shaker Road. It will be a duplex on towards the road and a single-family home in the back lot. There was some talk, apparently the property was sold, and so it's a different developer, and there was some desire to do 2 duplexes there, but they stuck with the original proposal, which basically allowed for some shrinking of the roadway going back into the property and some other things.
I'm sorry, I missed where this was again.
It's
Where-
on Shaker Road, it's up past,
It's just past
is it
Adler.
Adler? It's, yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
past
I'm-
Adler,
Just
and
past-
they're
it's on
actually
the
putting
corner
in the
there.
road
They're-
right now.
It's currently under construction.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
My
They,
neighborhood.
planning board had a public hearing for the ADU ordinance. There were some comments, there was interest in expanding the footprint to 1,000 square feet. There were some, there were people who liked the changes as they were, there were some people who wanted to see some others. There was one comment about allowing 2 stories would allow for a smaller footprint, and, did we consider that? Dan Cobb commented about, just asked why we were sort of going to so much trouble to get this passed, given the fact that there's gonna be more work needed in the future. I explained the deadline that we're working with and the fact that all the changes that are currently on the board, all of them could come true, or none of them could come true. So that's one of the reasons why we're sort of taking smaller steps. There was also a long discussion about the vault trail and the Hamilton property. The ultimate solution is basically going to be there will not be a path that directly connects to the path on this side of Main Street, but there will be a loop on that side of, within the Hamilton property that will exit by the crosswalk over here near the science lab. There was some back and forth about whether, because that field gets used for parking and other things, conversations about what should that portion of the loop be made out of. And Mo actually came up with the great idea, is he's just gonna basically mow it. So he'll mow from the end of the gravel path over to the beginning of the loop, further north on Main Street, and I thought that was a great solution. And in the end, they talked about the Stillwater Pines Phase 2. Proposal has come forward. That partnership has changed a little bit. They are looking to put in, I think it's another 29 units, which keeps them under that 50 limit that was set in the CZA. There was some discussion about some of the wetlands and the deer wintering area that's there. A question about the buffers being labeled as open space on their plan, and a couple of other things. But it was a good conversation. The developers clearly sort of wants to do put together a quality project and seems to want to work with the town. So that seems like it's gonna go well. And that's all I had for committee report.
Thank you, Dan. Very interesting. Marty?
The zoning board of appeals, if they need a meeting, will be May 24th. The Blueberry Festival will meet June 6th at 10 a.m. And I missed the finance committee and planning board because I had a medical procedure.
Oh, yeah,
That's all I've got.
I can do finance, sorry.
Okay.
Finance?
Fair enough, Marty, I should have thought of that. Excuse me. Finance committee did meet to discuss Katie's resignation and the impact on the town staff and how would the committee move forward, and some of the other issues around the attempt to put auditing out to bid again. Some of those things have been put on hold, but the committee is gonna continue to work on the financial policies for the town. And has offered to work with the town manager to help sort of backstop some of those services until plans firm up about what next steps will be.
Great, thank you. For me, open space met on May 3rd. We discussed participation in the Gray Community Day event, walked through a checklist ranking system for parcels, and focused on reviewing possible recommendations to the current open space ordinance, understanding that LD 2003 is going to impact that greatly. Our next meeting is June 7th at 6 p.m. Recreation met on May 8th via Zoom. We also discussed participating in the Gray Community Day event, saw a video demo of a new piece of equipment called a turf tank, which paints recreational field lines, and it's awesome. And it uses GPS and exact measurements. So I told my husband about it, and he's like, what? Like, why couldn't they have that when he used to line all the softball fields? It's very expensive, but there's a rental option and could save resources overall if shared for other entities. So for example, it could take, the 2-field demo that was done took 12 minutes and they were perfect, and it would normally have taken 2 staff members a half a day to do the field. So it's significant savings.
Sounds like a Roomba for fields.
It really is. It's like a little Roomba that paints fields. And the nice thing about it is you select the template, you program it, and because it uses GPS, when you want to redo that field, it already knows what to do. So it just redoes it.
So it is like a Roomba.
Yeah. So I referred that to Nate and Krista as a possible topic at an upcoming joint leaders meeting, because the affordability would be best if like the school, Gray, and New Gloucester all went in on a rental agreement with the piece of equipment. We also discussed ways to fundraise for the scholarship fund, and we discussed new benches for the walking trails. A resident did join our meeting as he's considering joining the committee, so we're hopeful there. Our next meeting is June 5th at 6 p.m. DMS met yesterday at the schoolhouse with our sole focus on the setup and possible open house on June 10th. Due to scheduling conflicts, it does not look like the committee will be available to participate in the Gray Community Day, but we're not ruling it out completely, but we are going to participate in the Blueberry Festival. And we just wanted to thank Mo and his staff for all the hard work they're doing to finish up the remaining repairs. Our next meeting is June 19th at 4 p.m. However, we will be having more work sessions at the DMS between now and June 10th. And that's all I have. Next item is council correspondence and activities, and we'll start with Krista.
On May 3rd, Dan and I had a brief check-in, just a check-in. I've been meeting with, as Sandy mentioned, a couple times with her regarding transition planning. On May 7th, I attended the May Meadowwoods Homeowners Association meeting as a resident, but they also asked that I speak about the open space plan because they had some questions about the connections for trails, as the May Meadowwoods neighborhood has a trail that connects over to Libby Hill. I was also informed by a resident, I have not walked the trail admittedly, but recently, I guess there's a piece of private property that connects, I was unaware of this, connects May Meadow to Libby Hills, and that private property has blocked trail access or has a sign up. I wasn't sure what property that was, but
I wonder if that's the old Johnson farm, because that changed hands, and he had a back lot.
Yeah, I was curious and would like to know more potentially.
Yeah, if you could, yeah. Well, we've got some mapping we can maybe
Right.
look at.
But the good news is that there were about 40 homeowners in attendance. We had a good crowd, and nobody was really antagonistic. Some questions were raised about potentially, we have liability insurance for our public spaces in the neighborhood. Some questions were raised about what that would look like if the town assumed ownership or we had an easement. And then we also had designated space behind our neighborhood along that trail. Originally, that was supposed to be kind of recreational facilities for the neighborhood that never got developed. And so there was some curiosity about what that might look like. So overall, it was positive. And I just kind of asked that if people have any questions, let me know. And tried to make it clear that we were not taking any land. It would always be a conversation, and that the Open Space Committee is there for the expertise regarding that.
Yeah, I'll bring all that feedback back. I mean, obviously, if they made it a public trail system, the state statute would kick in
Right,
for the
that's what-
liability piece.
Yeah, and they were hoping potentially wouldn't have to pay insurance for
Yeah,
that,
it would
but-
depend. We'd have to research it a little bit more.
Right, that's what I
but
said.
I'll
I-
bring that feedback
I said I
back.
was unsure, but that was a good question.
Yep, yeah,
And
it's
then
a
I
great question.
also parking potentially, what that would look like on the public street. I attended the Community Resilience Partnership Conference on May 11th over Zoom. I did not attend the whole thing as I had a doctor's appointment that afternoon, but the portion I did attend was really informative. I did ask a question to the DOT representative about whether or not they had any future, because they're pushing a lot of EV infrastructure and charging stations in order to get people to purchase EVs, both at municipal levels and also residential. And I asked a question about improved resources for fire and safety, because the lithium batteries in the cars are harder to extinguish. The DOT representative said there's a lot of misinformation around that. I don't know how accurate that is. And that there are resources for that fire rescue already uses that can educate on how best to extinguish those fires. I didn't really find that answer totally satisfactory, but just FYI to public safety about the resource. On June 1st, I am going to be participating in the GPCOG radio show called Let's Connect Greater Portland with Jared Maxfield from Wyndham and Bill Nemitz to talk about local news accessibility. I had an email from Ann Gass, I think we all did, regarding LR 1377, which is legislation regarding the Growth Management Act. We all had an email from Gerald Fawcett regarding Deer Acres, and I think Sandy and I had an email from Bev Schwartz about suicide awareness resolution that we pass every year. So that's all I have.
Dan?
Yes, I won't repeat what Krista said. I did have a conversation last weekend with Adam Wilkinson, as I mentioned earlier tonight, about the weight limit ordinance, or the weight ordinance for the town. And then also was in on the email from Gerald Fawcett, but traded one with Sandy and him, specifically letting him know that we would stay in touch. And that I think, we really have to take on this road piece now. I think they've been patient, and we have had other things to do, but I think now's a good time to jump into that for the next council, so we'll see what the next council says. Also, some of us received an email from Scott Liberty, who had some drone photographs of the self-storage unit. He said, he told me he's about 38% full at this point in time, so he has, fortunately for him, he has been getting some more business there. That's all the correspondence that I have.
Great, thank you. Marty?
Last Wednesday, I went for lunch to the First Congregational Church in New Gloucester. It's put on by our rec department in conjunction with their rec department, and the food is prepared by the new restaurant over here in the Mix Master, as I call that intersection.
The Clark Box.
Two Moms.
Two Moms, okay,
Kitchen.
and it was very good.
Yes, it's all by scratch and locally sourced. Yummy. Anyway.
I'm
getting a little
too.
hungry,
It's delicious,
apparently. Yeah. You can take home to bake, or you can take it hot. And desserts.
Shepherd's pie is ridiculously good.
See that? I think they have sweet potato lasagna or something too.
Yeah, sweet potato shepherd's pie.
We've obviously made an impact.
It's worth the
Two
stop.
Moms Kitchen, Two Moms in a Kitchen cooking is usually pretty good. For my communication, Doug shared a phone conversation with a resident, which was Adam, and I responded to an email giving him more information and inviting him to share his feedback with the council. I received an inquiry about the dates for our June council meetings, and I also responded to the follow-up email from Gerald and letting Gerald know that I was handing that over to Dan to move forward and stay in touch. And that's all I have.
Actually, Sandy, if I can,
Yeah.
I did meet with Doug for a short time to sort of brainstorm around the self-storage unit and some of the proposals that were brought forward as to how to perhaps create some sort of a sliding footprint there. And it was a very interesting conversation. I think there's definitely something there that we can work with.
Excellent, excellent. I did let Scott know that one. He came up to talk to me. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn at 8:50 PM.
So moved.
Marty and then Krista?
I think we have another 5 minutes on the agenda. though.
Nope. Krista?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Marty?
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
Good night, everyone.